Hey everybody, this is Dawn Burke and you are watching No Scrubs. We're here to help you have no bad hires. Of course, I'm with Fistful of Talent, and this show is also sponsored by our great friends at JobVite. Let's get our guest on right away. You know him, you love him, you see his mug all over. It's Tim Sackett. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dawn?
I'm good. Do you like my glasses?
I like your glasses. Very sophisticated.
It's called flex spending, end of the year. Have a little money. Had to use or lose. So I got some.
Do you like my facial hair?
Yeah. So tell the good folks why you have facial hair right now. Where were you last week?
Utah. I went snowboarding, and so guys trip, which means no razors and
awesome.
Facial hair. I don't.
Well, did it help you from the windburn?
Definitely helps. Yep. Because I probably would only have like this much actually showing, right?
Okay.
So.
Right. So one last question about your beard. Is it past the itchy phase?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't have one usually, so I'm always kind of like messing around with it.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Well, as much as I'd like to talk about your facial hair, let's talk about recruiting because that's what we're here for, talent acquisition.
Yeah.
So there's a post on Fistful of Talent I wrote for our good friends at JobVite. Essentially,
you write?
That's that's up to your interpretation, or all of their interpretation. So got a post on Fistful of Talent, and it basically is a call to arms for recruiters. If you want your recruiting efforts to skyrocket, you got to let your hiring managers shine. You got to make them finger-lickin good, y'all.
Finger-lickin good.
You like my, listen, I'm such a throwback. Beastie Boys throwback, or Colonel Sanders, one of the two. So, one of the two.
Might be a little more throwback.
Yeah, right. Getting old, brother, getting old. All right, so, I think there's always the yin and the yang, the push and the pull between what a recruiter or talent acquisition manager a professional owns in the recruiting process and what the hiring manager owns. And if there isn't some real clarity or perhaps maybe even some philosophical changes in how HR looks at that partnership, sometimes it can be very counterproductive, mainly for one reason and one reason only. No matter how important HR is to the process, and they're very important, clearly important. I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, but they don't make the hiring decision. So this is at least what the post says. You can disagree. They don't make the hiring decision. So, so in that regard, the partnership is intuitive and it's inherent. So you're an expert in this. Why do you think that some recruiters are so protective of their function? Like I own this.
Protective or defensive? There's a little bit difference there, right? Because I think there's a lot of defensiveness that happens because we're not trying to launch a space shuttle when you're recruiting, right? And so everybody thinks they can do it. Every hiring manager, every executive, they always think they can do a better job than you can, or they always have these opinions or suggestions. And if you're doing that function every single day, day in and day out, you understand that the innate challenges that we have in recruiting and finding great talent and talking people into your crappy company and all this stuff that happens.
Right.
And yet, nobody sees that. So I think you become defensive a little bit when somebody constantly is telling you they can do your job as well or better, versus like you don't say that to a nurse or a doctor. Like, oh, hey, by the way, I can do that knee surgery, and here's what you should be doing.
Right.
But yet everybody has an opinion, and it happens in HR as well, but everyone has an opinion in recruiting when they go, oh, well, if you guys just did this, if you would just get on the Twitters, I saw CNN today, and there's a company in Silicon Valley, so they're on Snapchat, and they're recruiting, and why aren't we doing that? And you're just kind of like, oh, you stop it,
Right. Yeah, well, I think that HR pros and all managers, again, I agree wholeheartedly with what you say. Everybody thinks they're an expert in people because they are a person. They think they're experts in it, and some really are, and some aren't. On both sides.
Everybody talks about how they want to be recruited, right? And that differs from person to person to person. So again, everybody has an opinion at what we do.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes recruiters are protective of their function. I think it's an inherent instinct. This is what I do. You do so many other things. Yeah. This is mine. And also, in all fairness to recruiters, they've seen some bad decisions from hiring managers, or they've seen some things that were sketchy. And so they're trying to stop the train wreck, and what they don't realize sometimes is this situation isn't going to be a train wreck, and or you're causing the train wreck. All right, so that being said, I believe recruiters need to be the subject matter experts, right? But is there ever a time, though, Tim, where you think that a recruiter does need to, for lack of a better word, pull rank and it would get a little more prescriptive or a little more directional, or flat out come in and say, no, we can't do this. Are there any circumstances when that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think either way, I think it's when one of your hiring managers is going to make a bad decision, which potentially could be a career derailer for them. And sometimes that is either side. Sometimes they don't know their own hidden bias, and that they're going to pass over a really great talent to pick somebody else that they just feel more comfortable with. And you got to kind of have to jump in and say, hey, wait, let's back up a minute. Let's really take a look at these candidates. Let's talk about this, because I'm not going to lose out on this, phenomenal talent because you don't like women. Like that, you're just being silly. Or conversely, that they're gonna hire somebody that's actually worse for their organization. That could be a really bad person for the organization. Again, because it's my buddy from college, and I know he's good, even though he's coming off of 7 years of alcoholism and drug addiction, and but he'll be good for me. And you're like, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah. Well, I think what you just said is very important, and I think I might even tweet it out. The first thing I thought you might say is, hey, if there's legal issues. Okay, well, that's true too. But you said, no, this might be a decision that is a career breaker for the person you're supporting. And I mean, and that's important. I think that's a good way to position it with somebody. To say, think about it. I'm not going to make your decision for you, but really think through these consequences if you make this decision, and it could be impacting your career. That's important. That is very important.
John, and you made this, you said earlier, that we don't make the hiring decision, right? The hiring manager actually makes the hiring decision, but in TA and HR, you have influence to an executive team that when something comes up for a promotion or something like that, and that hiring manager, you're going to have a say on that person. They're going to come to you and say, hey, what about Tim? What do you think? And you're going to say, he can't hire to save his ass. Like, he constantly hires worse people. He doesn't hire people that challenge him and make him better, blah, blah, blah. And an executive is going to go, yeah, you're right. Let's hold him off. We'll promote somebody else that has those skills. So for me, having that partnership with the hiring manager and helping them, putting them in a position where I can get them promoted quicker and get their career level, like, to me, that's where you put in that influence, where the hiring manager then will listen to you and say, okay, should I hire this person? Shouldn't I hire this person? And you start to have that kind of dual decision-making ability with them to help them make better decisions.
Which starts with understanding what they need, and number two, building trust. And one of the things that was in the post was, I think there's one question that all recruiters, HR pros who are recruiting should ask in the intake meeting before you get into, so what's the job requirements and how many years of experience and do they need to know C# or whatever. It should be, what do I need to do? How can I help you be successful in hiring this person? Really, I think you start there. Because then I think that's going to uncover a whole lot of layers of areas where you can then, give them that support they need, which will help, I think, build trust and credibility. It's not that easy, but I tend to think that could be a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yes.
No, I think most TA functions, they have this great habit of wanting to go out and start the intake meeting. And so let's say you're my hiring manager and I'm the recruiter. I'm going to have that first meeting. Dawn, how can I help you be successful? You're going to tell me. And then they're never going to go back and ask that same question. And yet every single time, every single position, how to make them successful might change. And yet we go, then even the recruiters will go, I just worked with Dawn on this position a month ago. I know what she wants. And it's like, no, force yourself to get back out there every single time to have this conversation. It might not be the same length of conversation, but you still need to have that one-on-one every single time. And so many organizations fail where they go, nope, I already know what they want, and they just move on. And that success definition changes over time.
Oh, I think that's perfect, for sure. So with the assumption that the talent acquisition specialist / recruiter really is a partner, though, and should be the subject matter expert.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel strongly about that. What are a couple of things that you believe that a recruiter must know and be educated on to teach hiring managers the right practices?
Well, first and foremost, I think to make a hiring manager better, you have to be able to communicate to them and understand what their biases are and get them to not be defensive about that bias and help them through that, right? So, hey, Tim, you don't like to hire women. If you just put it out like that, someone's going to like, oh my, I have no problem with women. I'm married. I have 3 daughters, and you want to go, yeah, and you have no women on your team of 100 and you haven't for 5 years, right? Like, you can point out some of this stuff, but so you have to really be a subject matter expert in terms of uncovering bias and actually communicating that out in a way that's going to help that person be better, and want to actually adapt and develop and become better. And that's really difficult because instantly everybody becomes defensive when you start talking about bias. I'm not racist. I'm not sexist. I'm not this. I'm not that. And then you start to point out the actual metrics and you go, maybe you are a little. Let's talk about that. And between closed doors, right? And let's just be honest with you. So I think that's one for sure. For me, the other one is, can you teach your hiring managers to be the jealous girlfriend? Because they tend to listen in interviews, they ask the question and they're buying into the person. Oh yeah, oh my gosh, you're so perfect, you're great. And like, what about the stuff that doesn't connect? What about those red flags? Like, are you digging in? Are you really being this jealous girlfriend and asking, where were you last night? Well, what do you mean? No one stays at a bowling alley for 5 hours. Like, what the hell are you doing there? Like you have to, like you really have to teach them to dig in. Because it's going to get them better talent, right? It's really, because sometimes they just get sold. And people are becoming so great at interviewing that I think hiring managers get sold, kind of average talent when they think they're getting good talent.
Yeah. All right. So the jealous girlfriend analogy is stuck in my brain and it works. I love that. See, that's why you're the guest on the show. All right. Very good.
Everybody knows a jealous girlfriend, right? Guys, girls. Guys had jealous girlfriends, girls have been a jealous girlfriend, whatever it might be. That might be my own bias of being sexist, right? It could be a jealous boyfriend. But, the media portrayal of a jealous girlfriend, I think.
Yeah, so we got two catchphrases now. Career breaker and jealous girlfriend.
Career
derailer.
Derailer,
okay.
Yeah.
Career derailer and jealous girlfriend / boyfriend / ... Very PC. You're very PC. All right. Well, Tim, we are out of time. Any last things about the hiring manager recruiter relationship and how we should make them finger-licking good?
No, not that I can think of. I mean, I think it's always, for me, one of the things that you and I talked about previously was this whole, should we incentivize recruiters and hiring managers, right? And for me, so getting out on this would be, I don't agree with incentivizing hiring managers. I think but we need to hold them accountable, right? It's not the recruiter's job to hire somebody for your team. It's the hiring manager's job to make sure their team is staffed. And how they do that, and how they utilize recruiters is one thing. So they're accountable to that. But I don't think we incentivize because they have the actual decision making. So if you incentivize it, they're just like, yeah, hire. It's raining. Look, I got all these bonuses because I'm good at hiring. Like, no, you're not. You just made the decision to hire. But I think we have to hold them accountable, and we don't. Right now, most organizations hold the TA team accountable for hiring and not the hiring managers, which is completely ridiculous.
All right, next month's blog post will be how to hold hiring managers accountable, because I think you bring up very good points.
Yeah,
managers aren't stupid. They can game the system, just like a recruiter can.
Yeah. Any other content suggestions I can give you for fiscal? Or?
Yeah, I'm actually, yes. So I'll be calling you later.